Thank you very much, Ben. And since we're just slightly behind schedule, we'll move straight into the next presentation by Kat from Field Ready and Deo from HOT.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for coming. Delighted that you're all here. Okay, can we go back one slide just so I can do a brief introduction, please? So my name's Kat Sellers. I'm Global Program Manager for Field Ready, and I manage this Creating Hope in Conflict, Protecting the Frontline program. I manage it in 4 countries, but I'm going to speak specifically about our work in Uganda. Next slide, please. So I think it's easy to imagine that comparative to next neighboring countries, Uganda hasn't been hit quite as hard with COVID. But these are some figures from WHO's website yesterday that demonstrate that actually COVID cases have gone up 20.78% in the last 7 days. So it should very much be at the forefront of all of our minds. Next slide, please. So you've heard a bit about the work that we're doing globally. Well, specifically what that looks like in Uganda is that we are using the needs list platform to work with local partners to map PPE and infection control item needs and to match them. And we're focusing specifically on NGOs working with refugee and host communities. Back a slide, please. We're working with the HOT team locally to map local manufacturing, and my colleague Dio will speak more to that in a minute. And we're working with local makers and manufacturers to make the items that are needed. Next slide, please. So this is just a quick screenshot of how needs list in Uganda looks at the minute. We currently have over 200,000 items requested, which is amazing. And we're about to commence with our making. On the call today is John Asinwe, who is our manufacturing engineer. And that will be his task when he gets his feet under the table properly. So we're working with established local makers and manufacturers to build from our portfolio of open source items. So part of John's role, we're working with local manufacturers to make these items and make them to a high global standard. Next slide, please. So as well as working with established manufacturers like Taka Taka Plastics, like Oysters and Pearls, working with the Ugandan Industrial Research Institute and with the Ugandan Manufacturers Association, we're also doing a lot of work through local makers and specifically refugee makers. So we're partnering with Lira NGO Forum, Kalika, YSAT. Back a slide, please. My slides are getting carried away with me. Thank you. YSAT, Glowford, an enormous number of local organisations with the idea that this gives us the reach into communities to understand what they need and also allows us to support refugee-led organisations to make things like hand sanitizer, soap and face coverings and to distribute them close to their community. Next slide, please. So Eric talked a little bit about our impact. We're looking at a reduction in cost. We're looking at a massive reduction in the time it takes for people to receive the items that they need. We're supporting local livelihoods, but really importantly, and Ben touched on this, from a strategic perspective, we're looking at increasing procurement channels. So we're looking at working with big INGOs like the World Food Programme to encourage them to have local makers and manufacturers as part of their supply chain, with the idea that once the COVID pandemic has passed, those relationships will continue to exist and those links will be built going forwards. If we can just go forward one slide, please. So you'll see here my contact details and John's contact details. If you'd like to know more about the program, please feel free to get in touch. And I'm going to hand over now to my colleague Dio, who's going to talk to you about humanitarian OpenStreetMaps part of the program. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kat. And yeah, hopefully I'll be a little bit quicker than that. So my name is Deogracious Shugude. I am the country manager for humanitarian OpenStreetMap team here in Uganda. Next slide, please. Yes, so who we are is we are an international NGO that works around really with the mapping of people with the people, but introducing really as much free and open technology and also really working through partnerships. Next slide, please. One of really our really core mandates and really one of the missions and visions we always like working with is really making sure that everyone is actually mapped and really working with them to actually map each other to really not make anyone left behind, as we understand that really maps can be a very impactful product that actually can help in planning and really executing a project more effectively. Next slide, please. So with our project of protecting the frontline, we are looking at really having the local manufacturers actually mapping each other. One of the things that we always do at Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team is really get the people on the ground who really understand the local knowledge and the local context to actually do the mapping. We just facilitate the mapping and train, but we really want to have the communities really mapping, because they are the ones that are going to remain on the ground even after the project is done. But even they will know when a new manufacturer pops up, when there's a new innovation, when there's a new change, a new streamline, maybe a new route that has been set up. So we really want to work with, and I really want to be working with the local manufacturers to actually map each other. So that is something that we really push. We are looking at all the way from Lira and all the way to Koboko, really work refugee settlements around Pidipidi, Palabek, and as well as Rhino refugee settlements. So I did see a question about whether we will be in refugee settlement of Rhino, and definitely yes, we will be working in those areas, and we will be interfacing with all those different districts, as you know, Uganda has very different districts. We have really broken down the open data model and really made it on the well-known ODK and Kobo data collection tools. We always want to really work with very simple data collection tools that anyone can use, and those will be available to the partners that we shall be working with on the ground, and will be allowing us to collect this information much more smoothly and effectively. Next slide, please. One of the things that we have actually talked about here is really working in partnerships, and that's something we're definitely going to be really working with and working around as well. So really working with the local partners on the ground who are actually manufacturing most of this equipment. Will be really working with these manufacturers to actually map themselves, because they really will be understanding the different technology, as well as even the locations of some of the partners. So those are some of the partners we'll be working with. I've seen a few on the call as well, like YSAT. Will be definitely having those conversations, as well as working with Takataka Plastics as well. And yeah, we'll be really involving everyone that is actually in that ecosystem of manufacturing as well. So thanks everyone, and over to you, Charlene.